Good day everyone, and welcome to the channel. It's Londononion here with a cleaner revisit. And a while ago we had created a build for Tala with a heavy orientation toward using the bow as her main weapon. Now today we'll be taking a second look at Tala and consider alternative builds to capitalize on different weapon classes in conjunction with her core skills. Now I had originally built Tala with a heavy prowess for bow use, weak spot damage, movement/stamina, and stealth. Now some of these choices may have been superfluous in their outcome and would require a fair amount of compensation from teammates. However, as promised, we are revisiting Tala for alternative capitalization, particularly in regard to her very unique stacking bleed capability. Now, as suggested by a fair amount of you, I decided to experiment with SMGs, LMGs, and shotguns, with some differences between each weapon class related build. And of course, naturally discuss how her role designation may change. Now, the last time we covered Tala, we had her designated as supportive offense, while her build bolstered her offensive capabilities and diversified her supportive capabilities. To kick off today's builds, we're first going to look into the class of SMGs. As you may guess, each of these builds will have general damage as the priority, but each will have its pros and cons with some preferential variations in card selection. So our first build is Shredder, Ridden Slayer, Hellfire, Cross Trainers, Utility Scavenger, Mag Carrier, Knowledge is Power, Phosphorous Tipped, Ammo Belt, Silver Bullets, Large Caliber Rounds, Combat Training, Life Insurance, Bounty Hunter, and Confident Killer. With this build, Tala's general damage will increase by 62.5%, with Phosphorous Tipped providing the potential for a small bonus in damage output. Her weak spot damage will increase by 30%, and from a more supportive perspective, Utility Scavenger will increase her odds of coming across toolkits to eliminate negative effects from opening warped chests. Personally, I find that warped chests on higher difficulties cause undue stress on health reserves and overall team efficacy. Bounty Hunter and Confident Killer go together like PB&J. Eliminating mutations will naturally increase her damage output and come with a copper reward. Now the main downside of this build is that Tala is rather squishy in that she has no defenses against general damage and trauma. So I figured the best way to combat this with a single card was with Life Insurance, which provides 2 extra lives and has a team effect of 10% reduced incapacitation trauma. Next, I experimented with LMGs. As far as the build goes, it mostly remains the same, but replaces Mag Carrier, Combat Training, Silver Bullets, and High Caliber Rounds with Fill 'em Full of Lead, Down in Front, Tactical Vest, and Reload Drills. With maximum card effects, damage will be slightly reduced down to 60%, but because of the class of weapon, it will be significantly higher. Reload speed will increase by 35%, and ammo capacity will be buffed by 80%. Lastly, I played with shotguns, and this build will have more differences than the other two with a greater orientation toward balance in offense, defense, and self-preservation. This one has Shredder, Ridden Slayer, Reload Drills, Rolling Thunder, Utility Scavenger, Knowledge is Power, Scattergun skills, Silver Bullets, Large Caliber Rounds, Buckshot Bruiser, True Grit, Confident Killer, Bounty Hunter, Life Insurance, and Shell Carrier. With this build, damage percentages are higher than the rest, with 67.5%, though naturally firing speed is the slowest amongst the three. Factoring in Tala's bleed damage, what makes shotguns particularly special is that each pellet stacks her bleed damage, theoretically allowing her to maximize bleed damage with 1 to 2 shells. With True Grit and Buckshot Bruiser, Tala has some self-preservation, allowing her greater efficacy in the face of punishment. But regardless, her builds make her out to be more of a glass cannon. Now, an honorable mention in this onion's opinion would be in Empowered Assault, which allows a guaranteed stumble of subsequent mutations following a mutation kill. This card also has a team effect of 5% stumble damage. With her rapidly stacked bleed damage, Tala can very easily be a perfect mutation deterrent. Looking at our major areas of difficulty briefly, with either of these builds, Tala can perform exceptionally well with mutations and enhanced ridden due to her bleed damage alone. Her Jeff Whistle, warped chests, and utility scavenger and bounty hunter cards give her some preparation in the corruption corner. As for the different builds, they will create greater competence in alternative areas on our Mads matrix. The SMG build, for example, will aid with longevity due to SMGs being more economical over long periods, and hordes from an offensive perspective can be handled with increased efficiency, with her bleed damage as each target will only require a couple rounds regardless of base damage. Bosses, however, will take longer durations of firepower with more of a stick and move type of strategy. With the LMG build, her efficacy with hordes is increased beyond that of the SMGs, though the damage and ammo expenditure can easily be superfluous if not controlled, decreasing economy and giving a slight hit to longevity, especially since rifle ammo tends to be the most commonly used. In the face of bosses, mutations, and enhanced ridden, the LMG build becomes extremely effective and warrants continuous fire, which only becomes more deadly over time. The shotgun hugs the middle ground. It covers an aspect of longevity with her self-preservation. Hordes, bosses, and enhanced ridden can be handled with ease, either with hazardous close-range shooting, or farther range shooting with increased ammo expenditure for greater safety. With silver bullets and large caliber rounds, this should provide some compensation for shooting from a greater distance, while also dishing out significant damage with her bleed damage that stacks almost instantly. In short, amongst these three builds, in regards to their strengths and relative weaknesses, SMGs perform best against ridden and mutations, LMGs against bosses and mutations, and shotguns are effective against everything depending on circumstances, fire rate, and range. As a small bonus, especially in the case of shotguns, Tala's fists are sufficient enough to take out ridden due to her bleed damage, which reduces the hazardous nature of close-range ridden. Mutations, however, should always be kept at a distance, in this onion's opinion, unless you're a melee specialist with titanium-level defenses. In our previous Tala build video, we had designated her in the Alpha grouping as a shot caller, due to her build being highly dependent on her leadership and direction outside of crescendo events. With her builds, this onion would argue that Tala would fit into the Major or Omega grouping, with her high damage potential as either a specialist against bosses and mutations, or DPS with hordes and mutations. In this onion's opinion, Tala with the shotgun or SMG build would be fitting for the Major grouping to take advantage of her quick DPS and bleed damage accumulation, while reserving an LMG for the Omega grouping as a boss and mutation hunter. Due to her relatively low defenses and lower mobility with the LMG build, but potential for high damage output, I would personally favor her as a rear guard lest she expend ammo unnecessarily. Frankly, with her bleed damage, mutations and bosses nearly become a joke with the correct coordination. Not to mention, with the different damage cards that weren't chosen during this revisit, I could only imagine much higher results in regards to damage output, in which case I would love to hear from the rest of you what other builds you would suggest when using Tala. Otherwise though, that essentially concludes our revisit for Tala today. Thank you so much for joining me on this one, and in our next video, we'll be exploring the second act of Back 4 Blood and determining a theoretically sound team based on our previous cleaner builds. It's been Londononion, and I will see you guys next time.